STEM virtual education program. My name is Rachel, education specialist here at the Topeka Zoo. And before we get started, we do want to thank our sponsors, Topeka Collegiate and the Kokari Foundation, for graciously sponsoring these programs. So today we have our final third grade specific class, and today we're going to talk about a really big issue in the animal kingdom. That is habitat loss. A habitat is a place where a plant or animal finds the food, water, shelter, air, and space that they need to survive. But unfortunately, habitat loss is the main driver for species numbers declining across the world. 85% of plants and animals that are threatened because they are losing their homes. And they are losing their homes for a variety of reasons. But today, I want to focus on one specific location. We are going to talk about habitat loss as it relates to Madagascar. And we are going to first learn out here, and then we're going to go inside and meet some live animals who are from Madagascar themselves. So when I talk about Madagascar, let's first pinpoint it on the map. Madagascar is an island off the coast of Africa. So if you look, here is the continent of Africa, and Madagascar is part of it, but it is this island to the southeast of Africa. And it counts as the continent, but it is on its own. Now, Madagascar is mostly going to be rainforest and forest ecosystems, and those tropical regions tend to have a high amount of biodiversity. Biodiversity is just a fancy word that means a variety of plants and animals, so variety of life on Earth. So biodiversity in Madagascar is huge because it is a tropical region that has lots of space and food and water for many types of plants and animals. Unfortunately, Madagascar has been roused by habitat loss over the last several decades. If you look, you can see this is a picture of Madagascar. The dark green area is how much tropical rainforest there used to be in Madagascar. But over time, this is 1950, it's gotten less, 1970, 1990, and even today, it is way worse. So the rainforest in Madagascar is being cut down. Now, reasons that it is being cut down is regarding agriculture. So it's a technique that we call slash and burn. And what that means is they're literally cutting down a whole bunch of trees over there. And they're also burning it. So slash and burn means cutting it and burning it. And the reason they are doing that is because of agriculture. They are planting different crops like rice and vanilla for humans to use, and that is taking away all of that beautiful tropical rainforest that many types of plants and animals rely on. Illegal logging is also an issue even in the protected natural parks over in Madagascar because people use those trees to build their own homes and to use their own resources. So one of the biggest reasons for habitat loss over in Madagascar is that the human population has grown. And it's not just in Madagascar. All around the world, we are seeing booms in our own human population. There are 7.8 billion people on our planet, and we are taking over the wild places and spaces that plants and animals need. And so that is a major problem. Now, habitat loss refers to when we just cut down the rainforest in large patches. But it's not just habitat loss that is occurring. Habitat fragmentation is also a problem. And what habitat fragmentation is when we cut down rainforest in patches. So as you can see in this picture, some rainforest still exists right here, and right here, and right here. But that is a problem for animals. Although there is some habitat in different places, it is not connected, which means animals are vulnerable if they are not covered by the trees in these locations. And they have a hard time finding enough food and water and shelter. Also, if they have a hard time reproducing, if there's one animal over here that needs a mate and a mate is over in this patch of rainforest, sometimes they never find each other and they don't reproduce. So habitat loss, which is the whole clearing of an area, and habitat fragmentation, which is cutting it down in patches, are both two major issues for the rainforest in Madagascar. Now, deforestation is the term that we use when we talk about cutting down the trees and the plants. And if you guys look, here is another map of Madagascar. So over the last 2,000 years, since humans have taken over that island, 90% of the forest has been lost. So here, if you look closely, you can see the green areas. That is what it used to look like. And here's what it looks like now. It is pretty barren, and what does exist, they are in patches. They are fragmented. So 40 to 50% of Madagascar's rainforest have been lost in the last 70 years, which is pretty sad. So not only does that affect the plants, but many of the animals in Madagascar are having a hard time surviving as well. And this is a really big problem because Madagascar is home to a lot of endemic species. Endemic is a term that we use when we talk about plants and animals that are found nowhere else on Earth. So Madagascar has quite a few endemic species that only live on that island. They cannot be found anywhere else. So some examples of their endemic species are the carnivorous mammal, the fossa, up here. These are really neat mammals. They can get up to 6 feet long, 20 to 25 pounds in weight, and they are a primary predator for another endemic species in Madagascar, the lemurs. In fact, 90% of Madagascar's plants and animals, 90%, are only found in Madagascar. They are endemic. So if we continue to deforest and slash and burn Madagascar, we are going to lose plants and animals that we cannot find anywhere else on the planet. Now, endemic species are good in that they're only found in Madagascar, but there are some other issues happening in Madagascar as well. Invasive species, which are animals that are brought into an environment. They are not supposed to be in Madagascar, but they are taking over the resources. That is another problem. So an animal example is the Asian common toad, which as its name suggests is from Asia, but it's made its way to Madagascar. Same with the strawberry guava. So invasive species are bad because what little habitat is left in Madagascar is being taken over by the species that are not supposed to be there. Another issue in Madagascar, particularly with the lemur species, is poaching. Poaching is a word that refers to either killing an animal to use it for its parts or to eat it, or stealing it out of the wild and selling it into the pet trade. So lemurs are also having a hard time because of habitat loss and poaching. So if you are in 3rd grade, what I have for you all today is a worksheet, and it talks about the human impacts that we have on our habitats around the world, mostly specific to Madagascar. So I want you guys, it's in the comments of this Facebook Live. If you click on that link and go to lesson 6 for 3rd grade, here is the word match. So each one of these has a word, and the word bank is on the back. So you use these words to fill in everything we learned today. And as always, take a picture and put it in the comments. So my friends, we are getting ready to go inside and to meet an animal who is endemic, who is found only in Madagascar. These are going to be our black and white ruffed lemurs. Now before we go inside, I am going to put on my mask just because we want to be safe for the animals. And we are going to meet their keeper, Kristen, who is going to talk about this critically endangered species. So let's head on in. All right, we're just getting our extension cord so we can plug in. And here is Kristen. So Kristen, can you please talk talk a little bit about our two black and white ruffed lemurs?
Sure. So we do have two. One's up lie on the hammock right now, and the other one was taking a nap. But we have Sarabe and Cleo. We have a male and a female. So the one that's here on the fire hose is Sarabe, and then the one up on the hammock is Cleo, our female. And these guys, like I heard Rachel talking about, are native to Madagascar, and they're one of two critically endangered ruffed lemur species on that island. And again, as Rachel stated, mostly due to slash and burn agriculture, deforestation, and then poaching. But these guys are really cool. They live in family groups, led by where the females are dominant over the males. And they travel around in the tall trees. Their diet is over 90% fruit. So they spend most of their day foraging amongst a wide variety of trees looking for plenty of fruits. But then they also can eat some vegetables and some small invertebrates, so small insects and things like that as needed. Here at the zoo, these guys get a variety of fruits and vegetables. You can kind of see some on their fire hose today. I didn't give them any hanging feeders, but they still have to forage for it. So they get some greens. There's some cooked and raw carrots today. I think there were some tomatoes. They get a special canned primate diet that's got kind of like a supplement for them, just to make sure they've got absolutely everything they need, and they're good to go. So they are taking their morning nap after their breakfast of some delicious grapes, banana, what else is an apple, and I believe there were a couple pieces of peach in there today. So they had a little bit of a smorgasbord this morning.
Wonderful. And Kristen, can you talk a little bit about their exhibit design? I see we've got some fire hose and some hammock and some tires.
Yeah, so we try to get them a lot of things up high. They do spend some time on the ground, or two do at least, but we try to get them enough high things that they can travel around the exhibit with plenty of room for both of them to use different things, and not just one or two, so that they're having to, potentially compete for a favorite spot. But the hammock is hung for exactly what Cleo's using it for, and they like to lay up there, especially in the morning when the sun starts coming up. That's kind of warm up for the day. Their room is heated, but they do like to go up there and sunbathe. So we wanted to make sure that they had that feature as well. And then other things we do hang in there on and off just for fun. So we hang fun toy balls, or we've hung stuffed animals in there before. So if you see anything kind of weird, we'll call it, that's their enrichment. So it's anything to stimulate their minds, pardon me, and their bodies. So keep them active and exhibiting, the similar normal behaviors that they would in the wild.
Excellent. And how can you tell them apart between the male and the female?
Sure. So Sarabe here, he's got nice crisp, dark black and white patches. They're very distinct. I wish Cleo was still down. She's real fluffy. So she looks unkempt almost, but she's not. She's nicely groomed, but she is super fluffy. And on her tail, excuse me, the top of her tail, kind of near the tip, she has what looks like somebody spray painted white on her. I mean, that's not really what happened, but that's what it looks like. Whereas Sarabe has a completely black tail.
Okay, excellent. So we've got a lot of questions coming in at home, which is awesome. Eli's asking, how high can they jump?
That is an excellent question, and I do not have the answer for that. If you find out, let me know.
I can look it up. Yeah. And Maggie wants to know, are they going to try to have another baby?
That is not up to me at all. So that is not a question I can answer for you.
And Bianca and Cami, how can you tell it's a male from a female? So these two specifically. In the wild, is there any difference?
Just they have male and female, anatomy. So otherwise they look really similar. So the males tend to be just a little bit bigger, but you can't really tell that just by looking at them.
Okay, excellent. And we're just going down. So do we have more than 2 lemurs here at the zoo?
No, these are only lemurs.
And I did read online this morning that there are over 100 species and subspecies of lemurs in the wild, which is pretty crazy.
Yeah, considering they're from just that one small island, that's pretty wild.
Right. So David asks, can the animals travel from Asia to Africa by themselves on foot without anything to carry them? So there are some animals, yeah, that live, that do kind of have a range between northern Africa and Asia. And over time, there have been many animals that have migrated from Africa into Asia. So yes, some of them can have very large ranges. Now, lemurs specifically live in Madagascar.
Right. They're not exactly swimmers. Most primates aren't very good in the water. Some are, but not most. And that's a really long, even though it looks really tiny on a map, but in actuality, it's a really long, a huge amount of water between those two continents. So, and the island. So these guys are right there, and that's where they're going to stay.
Right. And Nathan wants to know, why do we have them at our zoo as part of our collection?
Sure. Well, they're an interesting animal. We really like them, and they actually do really well in these exhibits. So we decided to, they came before, the species came before I started here, so the initial decision I couldn't tell you. But like I said, they do really well in our exhibits, and they are pretty, I'm going to say, easy to maintain with what we've got, which is great. And they are part of the SSP, the Species Survival Plan program, so we wanted to make sure that we could contribute, even if it was just holding and not breeding. It didn't really matter, we want to make sure that there's plenty of room for even non-breeders. So we tend to maintain these guys just because they're neat looking. Lemurs are really cool, and it's a really fun small primate to have in our collection. Hopefully that answers the question.
Yeah, no, I think that was great. Just anytime we have critically endangered species too, it's a great opportunity for education.
Yeah.
So I looked it up, Eli, in terms of your question, how far can a lemur jump? And PBS says lemurs can jump up to 25 feet.
Yeah, it's pretty far. So they have to travel from tree to tree. They don't want to go all the way down to the ground and then go all the way back to those really tall rainforest trees. So yay.
Right. And he also asked how fast they can run.
They're pretty fast, but they don't tend to come down a lot in the wild. So I'm not sure that anyone has actually.
Right. I just Googled that, Eli, and there's not a set answer. I think it's mostly because they're going to be jumping and staying in the trees for protection. They're not going to be running away on the ground like other types of animals would. So Adrian wants to know, do these two lemurs interact with each other?
Yes. They do. They groom each other. They sleep next to each other. They're not right now, obviously. Sometimes they need a break, from each other, just like you guys do with your brothers and sisters. And then they spend a lot of time, especially after we put them back together, after we clean. They'll do a lot of vocalizations. So that's really important for maintaining their social bond. So they'll vocalize quite a bit as well then. And sometimes they get a little rowdy.
Sure.
She has to put him in his place.
Bianca and Cammie want to know, what is their lifespan?
In human care, they can live to be over 30. Wow. In the wild, that's going to be significantly decreased, just because of predation and lack of medical care. It's really handy to have, vets on staff who can help take care of any, just maintenance health behaviors and treatments if needed. And then if anything were to happen, we can take care of that. So it'll be significantly less in the wild, but.
And how old are these two?
That is the one thing I didn't look at.
Oh, okay, that's fine.
They're older than I imagined they were, honestly, but in the teens, I believe.
In the teens, okay. And Hannah wants to know, how did we get them?
They came from other zoos as part of that Species Survival Plan program, so the moves were determined based on the committee that oversees this particular species, and they decided these guys would be, a few years ago, a really good pair to pair up and see what happened. And so they've stayed that way, just to kind of see.
Okay, and Maggie wants to know, how many hours do they sleep? They look like they're kind of sleeping now. Is this a common behavior for them?
Yeah, they are mostly active during the day, but they do tend to sleep quite a bit. I am not sure that there's a number of hours that's been measured or not, but they do tend to spend, especially in the wild, where they have to move and move to search for enough food to survive. So in the wild, they are going to be a lot more active, but only because they have to look for enough food to survive. Here we do provide it. They've chosen right now to not interact with their enrichment that I gave them this morning, so they are deciding to take a nap, and perhaps they will wake up and interact here just a little bit. So they're sleeping off that fruit.
Okay, excellent. And Eli wants to know what is their story, which I think we've kind of covered. I mean, they just got transferred from other zoos for species survival plan. Do they have like individual personalities, you would say?
Yeah, I mean, I don't interact with them specifically like a lot, but Cleo is pretty personable. She does like to interact with people, but on her terms. So she's not going to be one that comes and tries to interact with you. Sarabe, he is a lot more interactive and interested in people and what you're doing, and if you have food and that kind of thing. So he is a lot more curious than she is, for sure. And he's a little bit more laid back, but that also means that he's a little bit more stubborn.
Right, that's fair. And Adrian wants to know, do they have a favorite toy?
Not really. They tend to like things like food enrichment, like we've given them some fig Newtons just as
nice
stuff. You know, they don't get a lot of that just to make sure they're not, you know, overweight, but they do really like that, as well as craisins, and I'm trying to think what else they've had in there that they really like. They've had a kiddie swimming pool we filled with some hay and put some treats in there, and they interacted with that a little bit. They mostly like things that are hanging up. So when we change around the structures that you're already seeing in the exhibit, that's extra enrichment for them.
Wonderful. And Charlene's asking what lemur species they are.
These are black and white ruffed lemurs.
And Bianca wants to know, do they fight?
Just like any social animal, they do have their disagreements and their arguments, but for the most part, they keep those pretty low-key. You know, with this, like I said, the females are dominant in lemurs, at this lemur society at least. So it's pretty easy for her to put in this place without a lot of physical interaction. A lot of it is just behavioral and vocalization. She can take care of most of that.
Okay.
It's over pretty quick usually, but there's usually
nothing too crazy.
Nope.
And Hannah asked how old are they, and we're saying in their teens.
Yes.
So teenagers. Charlene wants to know, are they mates? And Nathan, along with that, wants to know if they've ever had a baby.
Well, yes, they did not survive. Last time she was a first-time mom, and she had quite a few in there. So unfortunately, that was the result. You know, if she does become pregnant again, we'll just kind of have to wait and see what happens. But for first-time parents, that's not uncommon. You know, and especially having so many. They can have anywhere from 2 to 6, but usually it's not, for first time at least, it's not 4. So she did really well. From what I understand, I wasn't present for her last pregnancy, at least in that area. But from what I understand, she did pretty well, but unfortunately that was the result. So we'll see if that happens, if she gets pregnant again, and we'll see what happens.
Yeah, we hope. And I mean, it's just nature.
Yeah, I mean,
being nature. We couldn't control anything.
That happens completely in the wild,
Right.
and no, they're not giving offspring. You know, they have 2 to 6 because, you know, maybe half will survive. So that's kind of what happens.
Right. Alba wants to know if they're related.
Well, no, these two are not. These two, I couldn't tell you necessarily how many cousins, but it's probably quite a few apart. But they are not related to, otherwise they would not have been put together to potentially breed.
Right, so AZA, which is the Association of Zoos and Aquariums, they pair them together based on genetic diversity.
Yeah,
So-
they want to maintain a genetic diversity of 97% over the next 100 years, and that 100 years resets every year, so they maintain based on, it's called mean kinship, which is how related are you to everybody else, and it's usually not very, depending on the species, so.
Right. Hannah wants to know where the other one is. If you look at the top right, she's in a hammock, right. Let's see here. Bianca and Cammie, what do they eat at the zoo?
Yeah, well, like we talked about a little bit ago, they eat a variety of fruits and vegetables. You can see a little bit kind of down and to the left from where Sarabe is, left over from their breakfast. So they get some greens like spinach, kale, or not kale, I'm sorry, green leaf lettuce, some romaine. They get special biscuits, little red biscuits that have some extra vitamins and nutrients and fiber. They also get a canned primate diet that has a lot of the supplements in it. And then they get, today it was cooked in raw carrots, tomatoes. They had some cooked green beans in there. they get a variety and it's a little different every day. And then they get a bunch of fruit in the morning.
Wow, that's a great diet.
Right? I really want to eat it.
I bet it's hard making it and not. So Casey's asking, do those lemurs come from Africa? And yes, lemurs come from Madagascar, which is an island that is part of Africa, but it's on the southeastern coast.
Yeah.
Are they able to swim?
Most primates are not fans of water. Many can swim if they happen to, we'll say, fall in a puddle or whatever. Be chased into something, but they do not swim because they want to. It would be an emergency kind of situation, and it probably would not be very far. They do have a lot of hair, it would make them a lot really heavy.
Sure. And Hannah's asking if we could see their whole habitat, which I'm assuming she knows that we have multiple rooms for them. I think for now we're just going to stick to this one only because the internet connection, we might lose you if we go farther down. This building likes to cut out our internet sometimes.
It looks a lot like this, it just has different hanging furniture.
Okay. Do they have a favorite place?
Well, they spend a lot of time where Sarabe is. However, they will spend time kind of in the little transfer areas, little doors. There's an upper and a lower. They spend some time on that ledge on the upper. They do like the hammocks where Cleo is right now. It kind of just depends on the time of day. And if it's cold, when it's cold in the wintertime, their floor is heated. So if you see them on the floor, especially if it's a cold day, it's just they're soaking up that extra heat.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
Eli and Maggie want to know, do you know what they call the babies?
It should just be infants.
Yeah, that's what I think too.
Or sometimes pups if they're, because there's multiple. Sometimes, but infants is usually what we call them.
Yeah, infants. Okay. I think we've gotten to all the questions. Oh, how big do they get? Hannah wants to know.
So they're about as big as they're going to get since these guys are fully grown, but they weigh anywhere from about 6.5 to 9 pounds.
Oh, wow, 6.5 to 9 pounds. That's impressive. Cami wants to know, could you remind us of their names, please?
Sure. Sarabe is the male. He's with an S, Sarabe, with ends in an E. He's the one sleeping on the fire hose and the limb, and then Cleo is the female. She's up in the hammock.
Sarabe and Cleo.
Yeah.
Alrighty, well friends, that is the end of our questions. Does anybody have any final questions at home on habitat loss, human impact, lemurs, anything that we have covered today? Okay, well nothing is coming in, so Kristen, thank you so much for chatting about the lemurs today. We appreciate it. And for those of you at home, we will see you again on Monday at 10 a.m. for a 4th grade lesson. Have a good weekend.